Good evening everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. Now before I get into this video, I just want to say another big thank you for the tremendous response that I've had for the draw or competition, the 1,000 subscriber competition, and it's just been absolutely tremendous. So thank you so much, and there's been a whole load more subscribers join since that video as well. Landing area. Just so that you know, this is becoming my most favourite word. I'm guessing you're going to guess what word that's coming. It's temporary. Yes, you've guessed it. The word is temporary. And yes, that is a piece of shelving. Shelving even. You put those on your wall and then you put brackets in there and you put your shelf on the top. I know. Just in case anybody decided to tell me, yes, why have I put a piece of shelf racking on the layout? It's temporary. The reason it's there is if for whatever reason there was a major derailment, and I don't normally get major derailments, I have to say, except with this. It's just to stop trains going over the edge when the lift is in the lower position. I'm not so worried by that track up there, because if it was to derail, the grass would catch most of that, to be honest. But there's never been a derailment going up and down that incline. So I'm going to start turning my attention to this area here. So what I'm going to do first of all, I'll tell you the basic plan and then I'll make a start, is to weather that track. So the next clip you'll see me with the airbrush and showing what I do to weather the track. Okay, welcome back. So what I've done is I've mixed up a mix of, you've got burnt umber and raw umber. So it's a mix of those two with a bit of black in there as well. Okay, so it's quite a thin mix. So I'm going to tip that into the airbrush. You will hear the compressor going every few seconds, because the compressor I've got is not the greatest compressor in the world. And it hasn't got a tank on it, which is recommended. But when you buy these things for the first time, you don't always know the best things to buy. Right, so I'm going to start over here. And I'm just going to put on a little bit. Just going to go up and down the tracks. The mix I've got isn't that strong. I want to do it gradually. Don't want it to suddenly just change colour. Now the idea of this as well is to weather the rails. Okay, I think you get the idea there, don't you? Now I'm going to do that a number of different times. Let that dry now. Get the airbrush to stand up, of course. That's it. Right, I'm going to go over that again. Let that dry. Go over it again in a few minutes' time, and sort of get that sort of browny look that I want to the track. And then I'll go over it with a grey and also a black. Well, probably just a black, to be honest with you. Darken up the middle of the track over the sleepers a little bit. Lighten up the outside of the track with a slightly lighter grey, just to give it a slightly different tone, and just to bring some variation in the whole stretch as it goes up the layout. Now, the idea is to try and blend the colour of the sleepers into the ballast colour so that they are not too dissimilar. Okay, now I'll come back to you shortly once I've darkened that little bit down and put a few different colours on. All right, see you in a minute. As you can see, now I've mixed up some very, very pale grey. Now what I'm going to do with that is just go down the side of the tracks, not the actual rail itself. And as you can see, it's quite a thin mix. All I'm doing is sort of just putting in just to grey things up a little bit, not too much, but it just gives that little bit of extra interest. That's the idea. Doesn't matter if it goes over the sides of the rails, but I'm not wanting it to go too much, obviously. Okay, I'm going to now put a dark brown mix, put some black into this mix. Sorry about that, that was a little bit sort of in your face there, wasn't it? Put some black into that, darken that down by quite a lot, and then just go up and down the different tracks, just with little bits here and there, not an awful lot, just to tint the track down a little bit darker in the middle. But this area here, when you've got this first track, because there is a point just there, there will have to be a signal around about here somewhere. So I'm going to represent the oil stains and darken that track down by quite a lot. Just this track, this first one, not the back track. The reason for that is because obviously trains on the track going up the incline won't be stopping at that point. It's only the trains coming down the incline would have to stop. All right, so I'll mix up that black, get that on, and I'll show you in a minute. Right, so as I said, I'm darkening this track down by quite a lot in the middle there. And just a little bit either side, just to represent the fact that the trains would stop. A little bit the other side. Right, so there's the track so far. Just let you have a look at that. So you can see, like I said, I've put odd streaks of black in. Not much, but all I wanted it to look is variegated. I didn't want it to look all the same all the way up, because track isn't. Different things happen at different places. Excuse the wire there, that's for the lamp, which will help you to see in here. And yes, the track is all very wet here, but that will obviously dry overnight. All right, now what I am also going to do next, and I'm going to leave it there to let that dry off, but I'm going to put a tiny little bit of scatters in the middle there. So I've got some beach coloured scatter, just this sort of colour. Just a tiny little bit just along the up the middle. The odd little bit of grass growing here, there and everywhere. And obviously once this is completely dry, then remove these protective papers, and then I'm going to start putting some foliage going up the side there. Maybe the odd tree where I can fit them in, of course, where it's wide enough. Welcome back. See, it's all dry now and not shiny. Okay, so you can clearly see now this much darker area here where the trains would stop at what will be a signal in the future. But it's got that sort of mottled look that I really wanted. You'll notice if you look at British track, it's all different. Every single metre of it is different. So you get dark bits, you get light bits, you get stains on the track, you get grass growing out of the bits in between, all sorts. So anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rub this down with a standard track rubber and get rid of the track or the paint on top of the rails. Right, so the track's been cleaned. Just now the pacer making its way, there we go, up the hill. and disappearing around the corner. Right, so my next job is to start putting some foliage around the outside of the other side of the track. Right, so I'm ready to start putting some foliage, like I said, down the back of the track, just there, just in front of the back scene. Now, you might remember a little while ago, I made up this foliage, so I've got light, dark and medium there. And all it is a car sponge, which I put with water into a blender and blended up really quite fine. Then added varying tones or colours of paint, which is an olive-based paint to get these different colours. And then you just leave it to dry. Obviously, that's got glue in it, by the way, and lots of PVA. And then just leave it to dry, compressing it, making sure it's really tight. And then you end up with this block of foliage, which you can then break up into smaller pieces. So I've got some glue. Standard PVA glue, which I've decanted into a pot, and obviously a paintbrush. So I'm just going to put a bit of glue, or a blob of glue, so I'm not going to keep it a small amount, it's quite a blob, down the back, and just sort of blend it in there. I'm not worried about it going on the back seam. So I'm just going to put it down the back. And I want a blob of it. I don't just want to spread it out. The reason I say that is because the glue, the foam or the sponge needs to sit into the glue, because otherwise, if it's just a small area that's gripping, you could easily just pull it off. I mean, it's never going to be firm as firm can be, but nevertheless. Now I'm going to put that so that it's tight in against the back seam. So a bit more dark. But you'll notice I've got 3 colours, like I said. Now what I don't want to do is put it up in stripes. So I'm not going to put a bit of dark, then a bit of light, then a bit of medium, bit of dark, bit of light, bit of medium. I'm not going to do it like that. Obviously, it goes in different... it grows anywhere. So I'm just going to put a little bit on the foam itself and put that in just over the top, just a bit like that, pressing it down. Give my fingers a wipe, obviously. And then maybe a bit more dark, which I'll just put just in there. Again, I've got a bit of a dip going down the back here, so I'm just pressing it in very slightly, bearing in mind that the distance from the track is this sort of size here, so I don't want to put a lot in, but I do want to put a sufficient amount to give the impression that there is a bit of depth or distance even. Okay, now I've got a little bit of a splodgy white gap there, so I'm just going to put a little bit of medium in there. But it's random. You put it anywhere you feel you want to. There's no rights or wrongs. You just put it on. But what you must never do is put on all the same colour all the way along. I've taught art for many, many years, as some of you may be aware. Been to art college, and the one thing you learn when you produce a painting, or even a piece of sculpture or something like that, is vary the colours. So if you're applying green, for example, you apply 3 or 4 different greens, which are similar. One's very slightly lighter, a medium and a dark. And by doing that, it creates the feeling that it is all the same, but there are slight variations in it. Okay, so just going to plonk that in down the back there, a little bit of medium. In fact, I'm going to put a big lump of medium in there, because I don't want it all to be the same height either. I want it to be low bits and high bits. Okay, anyway, I'm going to work my way up and down now. So hopefully hopefully if I zoom in a bit more now, you can get the impression of what I've just done. Like that. Just focus a bit better. There we go. So you get the impression of a little bit of distance now. So there is something going at the back there. It's not just a hill which then falls away. There's potentially another bank down the other side, which is the impression I want to give. And when I get towards the top, every now and again, where there's a slightly bigger gap, I will put in a tree or something like that. So I might put the odd tree up there, for example, where the gap at the back is a little bit bigger. Okay, there it is. So you can see now all the foliage is now in, and maybe apart from the odd little tweak, that scene is complete. I still need to work on this corner, excuse my finger, just up here. So I'm not going to do that now. I do need to put the bridge in, so that obviously the bridge sides, and decide on what sort of bridge that's going to be. And I want to put trees but down the back. One of the things I wanted to point out to you is that you've got 3 different types of greens in there, which are just jumbled together. And the foliage is not all the same height, as it wouldn't be. And some of it's really quite low down, and some of it's quite high. So there's some bits sticking up, but it's certainly not one colour followed by another, followed by another. It's all jumbled. All right, so you can't say it's a stripy look, because it just isn't. It just doesn't work like that in real life. And I think if you're unsure about how something should look, my best suggestion is go and look at the real thing. Go to a local area where there is foliage, and just look at it. Take some photographs of it and try and recreate what you see. And I think that's probably amongst the best way you can do it, to be honest. All right. Anyway, as far as that scene's concerned, I'm pretty much there. Now, I just want to make something clear, probably to the newer subscribers, because I've had some comments with regard to the hole. There is going to be a long carriage shed on the hole, and that's going to be attached to this top surface. So the lift will be free to go down and then back up again. The shed will remain in place. Now, the idea is that a train will enter, and when the lift is in the upper position, if I can get it to work, the doors will automatically open, and they're going to be the yellow black stripe doors. They will automatically open, and then when the lift goes down, the doors, if I can get it working, as I said, then the doors will automatically close. Now, in some videos of recent times, you've seen me running trains along here, and I still might for a little while longer. The idea of that is partially it's track testing, but it just gives me something slightly different to look at. Seeing a train going, I can see the full length of the train going along. And that's a bit of a rarity for me, because as you can appreciate, even this side, I've only got that stretch there, and then it turns a corner. And then I've got this little stretch here, and it turns a corner. So, in a sense, I can't wait for the layout to be extended, because I can see near full-length trains running on the straight sections of track, which for me is going to be, whoa, this is amazing, if you know what I'm saying. So that's why I'm doing it, but the train will never run straight through the shed and then back out again. Because I did have the comments that it should be a tunnel, and it can't be, if you'll forgive me. It just can't be. You see, the thing is, when you think about a tunnel, why would a tunnel be put in and not blast through and make an embankment? You see, the thing is, the land to make a tunnel has to be so high that it's cheaper to dig through it than it is to knock it out. See? So for this to be an effective tunnel, all of this land would have to be sort of up here to make that absolutely realistic, which then throws all this into jeopardy. And, you know, it just would not look right. And I have seen tunnels where people have just plonked them on top, and it's like the old-fashioned Hornby tunnel. Now, that's great for kids, but that's not a tunnel. It's like a hat for the track, if you like. It's certainly not a tunnel. Tunnels do not do that. They are usually on long, flat pieces of ground with a tunnel dug through the middle. Yeah? So there won't be any tunnels going in, I'm afraid. It's going to be a shed. All right? Trains will come in, they'll stop, and then they'll go down on the lift and come out the bottom in the fiddle yard. And the shed will remain in place to make the scene look more correct. All right? When the lift is down, it doesn't matter whether there's a lift in place or not. You won't see inside. Although I am going to put glass windows in, or acetate windows, they're going to be slightly darkened because you don't want to see inside. I don't want to look in and see a hole. So I hope that's clear, and it makes it's understandable why I'm doing it that way. All right. Anyway, I think I'm going to finish the video there. As I said, next video is going to be putting in the hard standing onto the lift section. So it ties up with this part here, and that will extend at both ends, probably about 2 inches at either end. All right. Anyway, take care of yourself. I hope you have a good weekend and a good week ahead, and I'll catch you soon. Take care. Bye now. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please do like, subscribe and share, not forgetting to click on that little bell to get regular notifications of any videos I upload. Some other videos are appearing on the screen right now which also might take your interest. Thanks once again, and bye for now.